This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Britons mourn the passing of Prince Philip, husband of Queen Elizabeth, at 99. The Africa CDC calls for urgent support for continent to purchase COVID-19 vaccines as the WHO decries shocking imbalance. And French historians hand Rwanda a 1994 genocide report which absolves France of any involvement. Hello and welcome to Africa Live, coming to you live from our CGTN studios in Nairobi. I'm Richard Nta. Well, Chinese President Xi Jinping and his wife, Peng Liyuan, have sent condolences to Queen Elizabeth II over the death of her husband, Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh. He died on Friday at the age of 99. In the UK, flags are flying at half-mast at Windsor Castle and around the country. Prince Philip was Queen Elizabeth's husband for more than 7 decades. He helped to modernize the British monarchy and steer the royal family through repeated crises. The Duke of Edinburgh, as he was officially known, had been by his wife's side throughout her 69-year reign, the longest in British history. Now, during that time, he earned a reputation for a tough, no-nonsense attitude and a propensity for occasional gaffes. On Friday, members of the public laid flowers outside Windsor Castle and Buckingham Palace. For the latest from Buckingham Palace, we have CGTN's Naweed Jarbakel joining us live. Naweed, we understand there is going to be a royal salute of 41 guns fired at principal saluting stations around the UK starting in the next 1 hour. What more can you tell us about this and what the Queen will be doing as mourning continues? Naweed?
Hi Richard, yeah, things looking a lot quieter here today, just under 24 hours after the news broke that Prince Philip had died at the age of 99. Apologies if you can hear that music as it goes past, but things looking much quieter here. Yesterday it was a lot busier, people coming to pay their respects, laying cards, laying down flowers. Part of the reason why it does look quieter is because Buckingham Palace moved swiftly yesterday, as did the government as well, to urge people not to gather. Of course, because of the coronavirus pandemic, the country, the UK, most of the UK, England here is still in its 3rd national lockdown. Because of that, social distancing concerns, people urged to do this differently if they want to pay their respects. One way they can do that, according to Buckingham Palace, is an online book of condolences that people can sign, and also a donation to charity, either one that the Prince would have chosen or one of their own liking. But of course now things move to what happens next, the preparations for the funeral. In about an hour's time there'll be a gun salute all across the UK, major cities here in London, Cardiff, Edinburgh, as well as the island of Gibraltar just off Spain, and many of Her Majesty's ships all across the world will be firing 41 rounds, one every minute, starting in about an hour's time. Aside from that, Prince Charles has also spoken. This is a country that's in mourning, the royal family still in mourning as well. Prince Charles making a comment yesterday. Television channels here, the state broadcaster BBC, going off air, changing its programming to all dedicated to the life of Prince Philip. One of those was an interview with Prince Charles, who said he probably wanted to be remembered as an individual in his own right. And it was a long and illustrious history, as you mentioned. 69 years he was alongside the Queen, usually a few steps behind the Queen, acting as her steadfast consort, the longest in British royal history. And in terms of Africa, I think it was particularly important, a part of the world that both of them spoke fondly about. It was in Kenya, actually, in 1952, on a trip that the Queen took. Then she was princess with Prince Philip, and he actually broke the news that her father, King George VI, had died while they were in Kenya. Aside from that, he's also been alongside her throughout the ups and downs and the trials and tribulations of the past 70 years. One of those was, of course, the death of Princess Diana, when this place was a lot busier. But also, when it comes to Africa, the end of the Commonwealth, that was a crucial part throughout the 1950s, throughout the 1960s. There were lots of trips that they took, the Prince Philip took to Africa, and that was one part that perhaps Africans all across the continent will remember today, some good and some bad. But in terms of what happens next here, the country is still in a sense of mourning. We should have more details about the funeral emerging later today. Word is that Windsor Castle, which is where the Prince died on the outskirts of London, that they'll be finalising plans for that funeral in the next few hours. But more immediately, the gun salute will happen and people urged to stay away because of COVID-19. Richard.
All right, Noe Jarbakel, thank you for that update and report. The UK mourns the husband of Queen Elizabeth. The Duke of Edinburgh dies at 99. The Duke died peacefully at Windsor Castle. In other news, let's turn our attention to Sudan. The UN is calling for independent investigations into the clashes into the Darfur region that left nearly 90 people dead. The Saturday clashes are the latest in a resurgence of violence in Darfur since the signing of a peace agreement late last year and the withdrawal of UN peacekeepers. In January, at least 129 people were killed and thousands displaced after similar clashes that also took place in El Geneina.
We are appalled by the latest resurgence of violence between Masalit and Arab tribes in West Darfur, in Sudan, that left at least 87 people dead, more than 191 injured, and forced thousands to flee their homes. We are also disturbed by the slow progress in ensuring accountability for this and previous violence, despite repeated calls by victims and their families. All the tribes responsible for violence in Darfur must be disarmed, and the state must be able to maintain order and ensure the rule of law, including by preventing armed civilians from taking the law into their own hands.
And for the latest on the violence in West Darfur, we're now joined by our CGTN correspondent Patrick Oyet, who is in Juba. Patrick, what is the latest on the conflict and what are the Sudanese authorities doing to calm things down? Patrick.
Yes. The government has said that, of course, it has sent in more troops to West Darfur, and also that it declared a state of emergency because, first of all, it has some of the leaders from Darfur in the current government now as a result of the peace agreement it signed last year. So it says it wants to comprehensively look at the problem of Darfur and try to resolve it. But looking at this issue, this is not a new issue. You know, the intercommunal conflicts have been in Darfur even when the United Nations African Union peace mission was in place. There were always intercommunal violence. Reasons are many because one, the region has been in conflict for long. Of course, during the time of former President Omar al-Bashir, so many militias rose up. They were armed by the government. But also, this is a region that borders Chad. So some arms come from Chad because there is conflict in Chad. In the northern part of West Darfur, also there is Libya, which has had its own problem of insecurity. So many arms come into the hands of people who are unauthorized to have them. And then you have this problem of the Arabs and the non-Arabs. The Arabs are like the Rezigat, who are pastoralists. Then you have the non-Arabs, such as the Malith, who are actually farmers. So there is always conflict over pasture, water, and so forth. So for the government to really try to resolve this issue, it is going to take some time because it may need the whole region. It may need involvement of Libya and somehow involvement of Chad to end the problem. But the government says it is trying to address the problem comprehensively so that this kind of intercommunal violence don't continue.
All right, Patrick Oyet, thank you for bringing all of that there to light. Patrick Oyet reporting live from Juba. Let's now head to Rwanda, where President Paul Kagame has received a report from a team of French historians on the 1994 genocide. The report details the findings of a 2-year investigation into the role of the French army in the mass killings. Last month, a commission established by French President Emmanuel Macron concluded that France had been blinded by its colonial attitude to Africa, to events leading up to the genocide, and consequently bore serious and overwhelming responsibility. However, in the nearly 1,000-page report, the commission absolved France of involvement in the genocide. Ties between France and Rwanda were strained after President Kagame accused Paris of being complicit in the bloodshed in which Hutu militias killed around 800,000 Tutsis and moderate Hutus. It is hoped that the report will help in normalizing ties between the two nations.
J'ai aussi rappelé dans le rapport I have also highlighted in the report the overwhelming responsibilities of France, which has not understood and measured the seriousness of its action in Rwanda, which has actually contributed to the genocidal process. The report outlines France's overwhelming responsibilities, which Paul Kagame and the Rwandans know.
We believe that this is a commission really made by historians, examining the history of the years 1990 to 1994, and this complicity is a notion of right. Some will be able to go back and say whether there was a complicity or not. For us, the report is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that the historical truth that have been established, and on this basis, we can build a new relationship.
6 Southern African leaders gathered in Mozambique's capital, Maputo, on Thursday to discuss the worsening security situation in the country's northern province of Cabo Delgado. This follows an attack on Palma, one of the key towns in that province. Angela Coppola brings you more on this story.
The deadly attack claimed the lives of many locals, military personnel and insurgents. The 6 regional leaders and their entourages that make up the defense and security component of the Southern African Development Community all agreed to meet face-to-face, underscoring the importance of finding a solution.
It also shows our unwavering commitment to our efforts towards the consolidation of peace and security in our region. We all agree that the deteriorating security situation in the northern province of Cabo Delgado in Mozambique is indeed a serious threat to peace and security, not only in our sister country, but also to the whole region.
Mozambique's leader agreed, but made the point that other bilateral agreements couldn't be minimized as SADC countries worked with Mozambique to solve the problem.
It has been made clear that terrorism being a global phenomenon, in this case, with more incidents in Mozambique with a regional impact, we have a shared and primary responsibility to tackle this challenge as Mozambique and as SADC without declining or minimizing the support from other bilateral and multilateral cooperating partners. The results of the summit translate the determination of SADC to condemn and combat strongly this phenomena, which can undermine the shared future of development and welfare of our peoples.
Analysts say the key outcome from the meeting was a decision by the 6 leaders to initiate an immediate technical deployment to Mozambique and also convening another meeting at the end of April. While Palma town has been cleared for now, analysts are suggesting that the government's security umbrella doesn't stretch to the area near the Total facility and those 20,000 to 30,000 people who are waiting there for humanitarian aid. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
As global vaccinations get underway, the head of the World Health Organization has noted what he calls a shocking imbalance in the distribution of COVID-19 shots. The WHO chief said that an average of 1 in 4 people have been vaccinated in rich countries, but that pales in comparison to a ratio of 1 in 500 in poor countries. He said about 38 million doses have been delivered so far through COVAX, which covers 1/4 of the global population.
More than 700 million vaccine doses have been administered globally, but over 87% have gone to high-income or upper-middle-income countries, while low-income countries have received just 0.2%.
The Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has called on the international community, especially the developed world, to provide much-needed financing for Africa to purchase vaccines and generally combat the COVID-19 pandemic. Africa CDC Director John Nkengasong said the time is now for the world to demonstrate true solidarity with Africa.
You all are aware of the conversation that is going on with international donors like the World Bank, the IMF on the special drawing rights, okay, and the AU, the UN Economic Commission on Africa. They are all working with the Ministers of Finance, the F-15, to really come to a common understanding that there is need for African countries to have access to the special drawing rights that will enable countries to have cash to support the vaccine acquisition and vaccination programs. Because as we have stated before, vaccines plus vaccination equals life saved plus economy safe. So investing in vaccine acquisition is not just a health issue, but it's also an economic issue.
Meanwhile, the Africa CDC now says it has dropped plans to secure more AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccines from the Serum Institute of India for its member states. The decision is aimed at avoiding duplicating efforts by the World Health Organization-backed COVAX facility, which will continue supplying AstraZeneca to the continent. This comes amid global shortfalls of the shot. The Serum Institute of India is the world's biggest vaccine supplier, costing around $3 per shot. AstraZeneca is by far the cheapest coronavirus vaccine launched so far and the easiest to store and transport, making it suited to developing countries. On Wednesday, European and British medicine regulators said they have found possible links between the vaccine and extremely rare cases of brain blood clots. However, regulators reaffirmed its importance in mass vaccination against COVID-19. The head of the Africa CDC, John Nkengasong, said the decision to drop AstraZeneca had nothing to do with those findings and insisted that the benefits of the vaccine outweigh the risk. So, how are these developments likely to impact Africa's COVID-19 vaccination rollout? Let's bring in Dr. Nta Gatai, our highly qualified guest to discuss the issues. Dr. Nta Gatai, the AU will now leave it to the COVAX facility to procure AstraZeneca jabs for African nations. How do you see this affecting vaccination timelines on the continent, Doctor?
Well, thank you for this, and I don't see any impact on the timelines. Remember that the COVAX facility was already scheduled to deliver vaccines to African countries up to 20% of the African population, and that is still on schedule, rather on plan, but not on schedule. Why is it not on schedule? Because of the Indian government putting caveats on the Serum Institute of India in terms of supplies to the COVAX facility. So the AU declaration of the Africa CDC statement does not affect the COVAX plans. Those plans are still in the way. Now, what the Africa Union and Africa CDC is saying is, instead of competing from the same source and ordering our own doses, knowing that very well that the Serum Institute is struggling to supply the COVAX, let the Serum Institute focus on the COVAX facility, and then let us go outside the Serum Institute and order doses from another manufacturer so that we complement the effort.
All right, Doctor, the AU and the WHO still have faith in AstraZeneca vaccines despite emerging concerns about rare but possible blood clots. Do you think these concerns will affect uptake of the vaccines in Africa, Doctor?
Yeah, the first thing to say is that any commodity that we give save human life or improve human life has side effects. I mean, we know even for vaccines, we have side effects which are documented. Pain could be, sometimes you could get anaphylactic shock or even severe allergy, pain. So this is just an additional likely side effect. And the European Medical Agency said a very rare possible event which needs to be recorded by the manufacturer as a possible rare event. Now, therefore, the recommendation is that the risk of these rare side effects, including the ones listed earlier, including the possible severe allergic reaction, should all be noted, but their risk is lower than the benefit that people get from getting this vaccine to protect them from severe disease. But obviously the headlines are going to affect acceptance. The headlines are going to increase anxiety within population because they sound very severe. And of course, the populations we are offering this vaccine are not scientists to review peer-reviewed journals. So it's up to the government and scientists and other key opinion leaders to overcome this fear because it's actually an extremely rare condition that has reported.
All right, Doctor, important statements that you've made there. Doctor, thank you for your expertise on the subject matter. Absolutely invaluable. We appreciate your perspective. All right, time now for a short break. Don't go away. You're watching Africa Live. Here's a look at what's ahead. Medical examiner testifies in the trial of ex-policeman Derek Chauvin over death of African-American George Floyd. And a South African company develops technology to reduce plastic waste.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Tunis, Cairo,
Syria,
Juba,
Johannesburg,
Ethiopia, Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice. How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
I try to not let it affect me, but there are days when it does. I'm a human being, and to see patients in a hospital bed and their family members are not there, there's no one there to hold their hand, that human touch, you know?
I just hope everyone can remember that the situation is not permanent and that everything will get better eventually.
Welcome back to Africa Live. Thanks for staying with us. We appreciate your company. The trial of white ex-police officer Derek Chauvin has heard more testimonies from medical experts. They include the county medical examiner who carried out the autopsy on African-American George Floyd. Dan Williams has more.
Outside the court, protesters continue to make their voices heard, while inside, the trial of Derek Chauvin continues. The former police officer faces murder and manslaughter charges following the death of George Floyd last May. The week has mainly focused on highly technical medical testimony, with the prosecution saying Floyd died of asphyxia, the result of Chauvin's knee on his neck for more than 9 minutes, while the defense argues Floyd died as a result of cardiac arrest, brought on by drugs in his system and underlying health issues. Those arguments make Dr. Andrew Baker, the Hennepin County Chief Medical Examiner, and the person who carried out Floyd's autopsy, one of the most important witnesses. He told the court that although Floyd's underlying health conditions played a role in his death, it wasn't the direct cause.
In my opinion, the law enforcement subdual, restraint, and the neck compression was just more than Mr. Floyd could take by virtue of those heart conditions.
A little earlier, forensic pathologist Dr. Lindsay Thomas told the court that in her opinion, Floyd died due to the actions of police at the scene.
What it means to me is that the activities of the law enforcement officers resulted in Mr. Floyd's death.
On Thursday, Dr. Martin Tobin, a pulmonologist, told the court that Floyd's drug use and underlying health conditions had no impact on his death.
A healthy person subjected to what Mr. Floyd was subjected to would have died as a result of what he was subjected to.
Defense attorneys have sought to make George Floyd's drug use a focal point. On Wednesday, there was a back and forth with James Rayerson, a senior special agent with the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehensions, over a phrase Floyd used as he was pinned to the ground. Had he said he ain't do no drugs or ate too many drugs?
Did you hear that?
Yes, I did.
Did it appear that Mr. Floyd said, "I ate too many drugs"?
Yes, it did.
But Reyerson changed his opinion when prosecutors revisited the question and played a longer clip of the moment.
Having heard it in context, you're able to tell what Mr. Floyd is saying there?
Yes, I believe Mr. Floyd was saying, "I ain't do no drugs."
Many court watchers, like local defense attorney F. Clayton Tyler, expect the defense to continue to focus on Floyd's drug use when they introduce their witnesses.
This whole case is about cause of death, cause of death, cause of death. The prosecution is going to have expert witnesses saying it was asphyxiation. The defense is going to try to bring on an expert to say that it was drugs.
Earlier in the week, there was also a stinging rebuke of Chauvin's actions by his former boss, the Minneapolis police chief, Madeira Arredondo.
That level of force to a person proned out, handcuffed behind their back, that in no way, shape, or form is anything that is by policy, it is not part of our training, and it is certainly not part of our ethics or our values.
The trial is now at a key stage. Soon it'll be the turn of the defense to call their witnesses. And the key question on everyone's mind, will Derek Chauvin himself take the stand? Dan Williams, CGTN, Minneapolis.
A South African biotechnology company called Eco Invader Solutions has found a way to help deal with plastic pollution by inventing a bioplastic developed from sawdust and nanotechnology. The bioplastic is made from plant waste material, which is compostable and dissolves in water within a few days. CGTN's Ulisa Nchimela has more.
While plastic has many valuable uses, humanity has become addicted to single-use or disposable plastic with severe environmental consequences. According to the United Nations Environment Programme, around the world, at least 1 million plastic drinking bottles are purchased every minute, while up to 5 trillion single-use plastic bags are used worldwide every year. In total, half of all plastic produced is designed to be used only once and then thrown away. It's an issue that many are seeking solutions for. Johannesburg resident Tshepo Mangwili is one of those. He has developed Dissolve Bioplastic.
Essentially, a bioplastic is a biodegradable plastic that is often made from renewable sources. So, for example, it could be made from corn, could be made from sawdust, or any other renewable resource. And Dissolve is a bioplastic that is made from mainly sawdust, and then we extract nanoparticles from that. So these are essentially tiny small particles that come from the trees, and then we use that to create a plastic that, if it gets into contact with water for a specific amount of time, because we control how long it takes for it to dissolve, it dissolves completely back to its organic nature, as well as a bit of CO2 that comes out.
Mangwili says his innovation will bring solutions to the plastic pollution issue, more so the problematic microplastic. A microplastic particle is any piece of plastic smaller than 5 millimeters. A new study in the journal Environmental Science and Technology indicates that an average person ingests up to 70,000 microplastics annually.
The product is meant to solve two problems, essentially. One is the pollution problem in communities. I mean, most of our communities are filled with plastics. People just throw them around, and oftentimes children are playing in these streets where the plastics are filled. So for me personally, I've experienced that. So it's a huge problem that I would really like to solve, and that's why the plastic is dissolvable, but also biodegradable, so that we can get rid of that issue. But also to show people the harmful nature of plastics, so to make them aware of plastics, more especially to our health. Because the injection of microplastics, most people don't know about that, but it's a huge disruptor of our hormone system.
Mangwili developed Dissolve Plastic after 2 years of experimenting with waste biomass to manufacture different products. All this happened in his kitchen.
We started creating a process for lignin extraction in the kitchen. Then from there, and after 2 or more fires, then came the bioplastics. So all of this process started off in the kitchen, and then I started outreaching to research institutions, mainly the CSIR, so that's the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, and then they started helping with using some of their smaller machinery to start experimenting with our bioplastic.
This young entrepreneur says the biggest challenge that he's facing now is how to access capital in order to commercialize his product. Yudisa Njamala for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Since the coronavirus pandemic struck, many people across the world have resorted to working online. With people forced to isolate in their homes, most companies opted for online video conferencing options like Zoom. Research done by Stanford University has warned that keeping people in their home offices and in Zoom meetings all day long can lead to anxiety, burnout, and fatigue. CGTN's Julie Shire reports.
COVID-19 lockdowns around the world have forced people to stay apart and changed the way we live and work. Chances are, if you are someone who began working at home due to the coronavirus pandemic, you found yourself sitting on a Zoom video call pretty much every hour of every day. Stephanie Wilhelm found that she adapted quite easily.
Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us. Do you feel there's such thing as Zoom fatigue? Do you feel fatigued?
I haven't found that I got any more stressed or tired. Obviously, I'm on call the whole time. There's not time to break off because you're always on WhatsApp or, the emails are coming in. So it's difficult to turn off. But I think in general, personally for me, I wouldn't say I'm fatigued by Zoom.
For others, it's been a little tougher. Hundreds of millions of Zoom meetings happen globally on a daily basis. Research by Stanford University indicates constantly staring at a screen and interacting with colleagues via Zoom for hours is not good physically or mentally.
The thing with Zoom fatigue in particular is the relentlessness of it. Is that there is no breathing space between meetings. And I think that Zoom work meetings are particularly exhausting, actually, because you're having to watch all of the time. You're having, people are having to wait, raise their hands, hold back in a very unnatural and quite unspontaneous ways.
Finding a balance between work, household chores and family time is key, but it can be difficult when work pressures mount.
So it's about being considerate just in yourself about the space between meetings, arrival and an ending of a meeting, to just have that space in between what you book for yourself and what you book for your staff.
As countries around the world scramble to vaccinate their populations, COVID-19 is expected to remain for a while. Companies will have to find ways of dealing with Zoom fatigue and other online stresses to avoid workers burning out. Julie Shire, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
All right, you're watching Africa Live. Don't go away. We've got your business news next. Here's a look at what's ahead. Nigeria's traditional palm wine becomes a premium brand globally. And in the DRC, a delivery service run exclusively by women aims to transform lives.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
There's more to this place than just glorious landscapes. There's more to it than just, say, Table Mountain or glorious, endless salt flats. There's more to it than countries that are home to some of the deepest mines in the world. There is so much more to this place, even if it is home to some of the finest diamonds on the planet. It is the sheer diversity of the people who call Southern Africa home, and the relentless drive to make it a better place that make it so special. And we know that because this too is home. No one knows Southern Africa like we do. CGTN, see the difference.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines.
got to get out, go there and you'll find them. In the bazaars of Casablanca, among the crowds in Cairo,
who come to visit Cairo, the ancient capital of Egypt.
Along the waters of the Nile, along the sands of the Sahara. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. No one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
Accra is my kind of city. That's because when I'm here, I feel like I'm back home in Lagos or Abidjan, which are two of the major cities I grew up in.
Business in Africa is high risk.
After about a decade covering business news on the continent, I've learned it's all about the high risk, but also the high returns and the high energy. You simply have to adjust in order to keep pace. When I started out as a journalist, my dream was to open people's minds to the different perspectives. From the CEO in the boardroom to the trader out in the street, we all have different stories. From Accra to Addis Ababa, from Cairo to Cape Town, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Here at CGTN, we realize that Africa is on the move, and it's moving fast, but we're moving right along with it. I'm Ucheo Koronkwo, and I'm a business anchor and reporter at CGTN.
Welcome back to Africa Live. Two Nigerian entrepreneurs are hoping the combination of traditional techniques and modern distillation will attract upmarket customers to traditional palm wine. Now, this is amid a growing premium spirits market in Africa's most populous country. Nick Mudima reports.
This is the first step in making ogogoro, a Nigerian spirit also known as push me, I push you. It's fermented using techniques dating back centuries. But today, a pair of entrepreneurs are using contemporary branding to bring the palm wine to an affluent global audience. In the Pedro's Distillery in Lagos, co-founder Chiboeze Kukwe is adding labels to this premium version of ogogoro.
I didn't see much of a difference between some of the big name brand spirits that we know all across the globe. When you compare those with ogogoro, they seem very similar to us. So we thought we could take ogogoro and just highlight it and showcase it to the world.
Pedro's is sold in Ghana, Kenya, and Britain. According to research firm Euromonitor, the premium spirits market is also growing in Nigeria, albeit from a low base. A report in September said such drinks are creating interest among the younger, wealthy population. Pedro's aims to appeal to that market by combining modern distillation with the traditional techniques. Fermentation and initial refinement take place back in the village. These are methods that were taught to Sarah Adutan by her parents when she was young. She says she's happy thanks to Pedro's business, which is booming, and she can save money. But potency and quality can vary. That's why Lola Pedro, after whom the premium spirit is named, samples every keg before buying.
You can never expect 100% consistency. You get like the fact that there'll be different trees that they're tapping at different times with different fermentation of the palm wine.
The ogogoro heads to the distillery for further refinement. Relatively nearby is the impoverished neighborhood of Sele Egbe. Men pour copper-colored ogogoro into metal cups. They're not drinking Pedro's. In a country where most live on less than $2 a day, a 500mm bottle costs $50. But then Pedro is targeting different customers to this group of friends, sharing a drink under the shade of a tree. Nick Mudimba, CGTN.
The move to low-carbon transportation options like electrical vehicles highlights battery technology such as lithium-ion. This provides a unique opportunity for policymakers and local producers to explore South Africa's competitive advantage in the lithium-ion battery value chain. Angela Coppola has more.
Unfortunately, South Africa is not well endowed with large deposits of the so-called battery metals.
There are some deposits in Gauteng, Northern Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, but a key factor to be considered with South African lithium reserves is based on the market value of hard rock lithium. We don't have bronze here, as we have hard rock lithium, pegmatite material generally, and they are considered marginal in comparison to some of the other global deposits.
When it comes to mining, it's all about policy certainty, return on investment, and cost per ton to extract the ores, and the size of the reserves.
Apart from lithium, South Africa also has significant manganese deposits. And these manganese deposits can be used in the manufacturing of nickel manganese cobalt batteries or lithium manganese oxides. So if South Africa were to capitalize on the battery metals space, it would be in terms of using the commodities that they have bulk amounts of, as well as combining them with the lithium that they could potentially import or use locally, or source locally, I should say.
Mining the battery metals is a critical component, but so is beneficiation. And the Department of Science and Innovation have a workable plan to develop a local value chain.
Looking at the whole value chain from the mining part, I think the main thing is to beneficiate our minerals, because as you know, the lithium-ion battery, the whole making of the battery to selling the batteries, or where the it's not South Africa, we have the minerals, but we don't have plants or pilot plants or manufacturing plants for the batteries.
South Africa has an abundance of natural resources, but authorities have focused their efforts on minerals that can be mined and beneficiated relatively quickly, like lithium.
We must accelerate them fast so that we can focus on things like electrification of our homes. There's load shedding now. There's most of the houses in Africa, they don't have electricity. So if we think of a solution that will help South Africa and also the African continent. So we need to work together. The policies need to be there for South Africa to always work with the SADC, or to be able to work with those countries that have those lithium, that have the cobalt, that have those other minerals, so that we can form a hub.
While South Africa doesn't have a high density in terms of those battery metals, it's important that a value chain is created so that there is beneficiation taking place. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
A delivery company in the Democratic Republic of Congo is helping transform the country's transport sector by launching a service that's run exclusively by women. The women riders from UBiz Delivery use electric tricycles to supply a range of goods across the capital, Kinshasa. CGTN's Chris Ochemringa has that story.
A motorbike riding test in Kinshasa. The women are being prepared to ride the DRC's first all-female crew delivery tricycles. Generose Munganga is one of the instructors of UBiz Delivery, the company that's breaking gender stereotypes in the DRC.
Donc je dirais que pour moi,
for me, it's really great to be riding this delivery tricycle. People keep staring at me and wondering how I learned to ride this electric motorbike, because there are very few here in Kinshasa.
The tricycles were imported from China and assembled by this female technician in Kinshasa. She believes women have all it takes to do jobs that have traditionally been done by men.
dans mon avis, les travail des hommes, il n'y en a pas.
There is no job that is exclusive for men. Women can do the same work as men. We only need the opportunity. We are all human beings.
On a le droit de travailler.
The tricycles are a faster way of getting around the city's heavy traffic. These ladies deliver everything from groceries to office equipment in these tricycles. Their mastery of navigating the city's busy traffic has won them admiration from some of the locals. The delivery service is the latest business expansion of UBiz Cabs, a female taxi company operating in Kinshasa. The company was started 3 years ago by Congolese entrepreneur Patricia Nta.
We have an issue with the holding in DRC, and the reason why we wanted to build all this logistic transportation through UB's delivery was how can we help the farmer bring the food from Congo Central to Kinshasa. We not just to have the cargo delivery, we have also the big truck.
Earlier this year, Nta was recognized by a global initiative on sustainable mobility called TUMI for improving the DRC's transport sector.
We believe what we are doing and we are passionate about what we are doing. We're just waiting and we are going, like a step by step, one woman at a time, changing the world. Yeah.
She's an ardent feminist whose dream of employing women in a male-dominated sector has become a reality. Her company has offered employment to many women, and that has empowered them to become financially independent, allowing them to pursue their dreams. Chris Ochamringa, CGTN, Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo.
Powerful and inspiring indeed. We're not done just yet. We've got your sports news coming up. Here's a look at that headline. Egyptian giant Zamalek prepare to take on Senegalese side Tungueth FC in a must-win tie.